Good morning. Our opening words this morning are by Reverend Jason Cook. We seekers are on a quest to discover truth and meaning. Sometimes we think we found it, wrapped up, glimmering with newness, straight off of the intellectual assembly line. All the answers are right there for us and others if they'd only listen. But truth has a way of coming in disguise, sometimes wearing rags and sometimes finery, but so often cloaked from our immediate sight. And sometimes that which we have rejected, that which we have let go of or decided is only for others, but not us, can be our teacher. Let our time of worship be an acknowledgement of the never-ending journey towards truth and meaning, and our appreciation of those we learn from along the way. And so I just want to see if we can unspotlight Colleen and spotlight us. We've got some new talent working with us on the boards here today. And so for me, I just want to welcome you with live from Fellowship Hall. It's our LCUUF Sunday service. Yes, and my name is Matt Alspaugh. I'm the minister here, and I'm joined today by Kate Howell, who is the service leader. Now, our announcements were on a slideshow before the service. If you didn't see them, don't worry, they'll be sent by email in the next day or so. A few notes. Our building is now open to all participants. We will continue to offer our service on Zoom, of course, even as we welcome people in the building. Do we ask people to continue to wear masks in the building to better protect those who are immunocompromised or who are not yet fully vaccinated? This is Mexico, as you know. And starting this Sunday, we have coffee and tea available after the service. And finally, a special welcome to our visitors, including those from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Huntsville, Alabama, who are joining us this morning. Welcome.
Now is the time when we light our chalice. Our chalice lighting words today are by UU Minister Reverend David Breeden. Our light is the light of the sun, keeper of all we love. Our light is the light of the earth, provider of sustenance. Our light is the light of all living things, life precious like our own. Our light is the light of each of us, bound together in need and hope. Our light is the light of the cosmos, keeper of all we know. If you are at home, please light your chalice, and we will sing our chalice lighting words.
We kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share.
Our opening hymn this morning is hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. This is by Unitarian Universalist hymnodist Shelley Jackson Denham. This hymn has long been a favorite at LCUUF. We will sing verses 1, 3, and 4 on your screens. Please join Linda in singing.
Something here to which we can belong.
We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone.
But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own.
And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found our need to be together. We have our hearts together. We have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer.
Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief.
The death of one among us fills it all with pain and grief.
But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done,
The memories we shared with friends, they will linger on and on.
and we believe in life
And in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe, and peace within our living is an answer.
we seek elusive answers to the questions of this life.
We seek to put an end to all the waste of human life.
We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind.
And then we come together here to make sense of what we find.
And we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found our joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we will finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Well, I'm very impressed. That was a very good response, both online and in person. Thank you. Okay, joys and sorrows. Each week we take time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. We do this by sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives. We'll start with people in the room and then those on Zoom. If you have a joy or sorrow to share today, you can type it into the chat and we'll read from those aloud in a bit. But first of all, Matt is going to take the microphone around. We're going to voice our sorrows or concerns, whatever you or the world may be holding that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts. You're welcome to type your sorrows into the chat box. Matt? Okay, now
yes.
starting over again.
Okay, great. First, Deborah, right? Deborah.
As y'all know, Janice Kimball comes here, and I'm her son, Terrence Kimball. I come down here twice a year, so I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
We're very happy to have you here, Terry.
Okay, online?
Online, anybody? Colleen?
No concerns or sorrows online expressed.
That's excellent. Okay, now let's try some joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others. Again, you're welcome to type these into the chat box, and we will first have any joys from in the group here and then from the Zoom. Anybody here have a joy? No joys. Any from Zoom?
Yes, we have Kathy Fisher, who says she is here from the UU Church of Huntsville, Alabama, and glad to join us. We also have a joy from Susie Lindemann, who says that she's very glad that her good friend Ana de Costa Rica is visiting her now. We have a sorrow actually from Kathy that I just saw, who says, I discovered yesterday a dear classmate and friend had died on April 1st. And a joy from Shailin Modi. Sorry if I mispronounced that, who says, it's a joy getting together with friends this weekend and the widespread of emotions from the Olympics. Oh, and there it's Shailene Modi. Thank you. I have a joy, Colleen Beery, that I may have found a long-term rental. Cross your fingers, folks. That's all.
Thank you, group. And last but not least is the care candle. From our care team, this candle represents those sorrows that are too raw, too difficult for us to share aloud. So many of us have had losses, partners, family, children, grandchildren, losses that remain present with us every day. So many of us have burdens, anger, fear, frustration, all of those things that weigh heavy on our hearts. So we light this last candle for all of those unspoken sorrows.
And now we enter into a time of meditation. And oftentimes for many of us who work with our minds a lot, many of us who are sort of an intellectual bent, the mind can think at an awful fast pace. And oftentimes one of the approaches or one of the benefits of meditation is to sort of help us concentrate, help us to manage that racing mind. And one of the simplest ways to do that is by counting the breath. So let me show you a simple technique which could help you to kind of put your mind into idle for a little bit, kind of give it a little rest. This can be helpful. So just get comfortable in your chairs or wherever you are, and relax your body. And so this form of counting, basically on the in-breath, I invite you to just count to yourself 1 on the in-breath, and then 2 on the out-breath, 3 on the next in-breath, and 4 on the out-breath, and 5 on the in-breath, and then 4 on the out-breath, and then 3 on the in-breath, and 2 on the out-breath, then 1 on the in-breath, and 2 on the out-breath. And so just do that, noticing that the in-breath is on the 1, 3, and 5, and the out-breath is on 2 and 4. So just let's do that for a moment, just counting to ourselves, finding whatever pace of breath is good. And if your mind drifts away, just come back to the count. And if your mind really drifts away, don't beat it up, just come back to the count. And if sounds come, notice them and come back to the count. And now let us return to this time and this space to be together again.
How can I be happy? Some people believe that there is one single meaning of life. They think that the universe was created for a purpose, and that human beings are part of some larger cosmic plan. They think our meaning comes from being part of this plan and is written into the universe waiting to be discovered. A humanist view of meaning in life is different. Humanists do not see that there is any obvious purpose to the universe, but that it is a natural phenomenon with no design behind it. Meaning is not something out there waiting to be discovered, but something that we create in our own lives. And although this vast and incredibly old universe was not created for us, all of us are connected to something bigger than ourselves, whether it is family and community, a tradition stretching into the past, an idea or cause looking forward to the future, or the beautiful wider natural world on which we were born and our species evolved. This way of thinking means that there is not just one big meaning of life, but that every person will have many different meanings in their life. Each one of us is unique, and our different personalities depend on a complex mixture of influences from our parents, our environment, and our connections. They change with experience and changing circumstances. There are no simple recipes for living that are applicable to all people. We have different tastes and preferences, different priorities and goals. One person may like drawing, walking in the woods and caring for their grandchildren. Another may like cooking, watching soap operas, savouring a favourite wine or a new food. We may find meaning through our family, our career, making a commitment to an artistic project or a political reform, in simple pleasures such as gardening, in hobbies, or in 1,000 other ways, giving rein to our creativity or our curiosity, our intellectual capacities, or our emotional life. The time to be happy is now, and the way to find meaning in life is to get on and live it as fully and as well as we can.
Some time ago, a good friend and mentor of mine gave me this piece of advice, which was a quote from George Burns. The secret of a good sermon is to have a good beginning, followed by a good ending, and having those two pieces as close together as possible. I try to follow Burns' practice, especially that last part, but today will be hard because this is a huge and complicated topic. So I've cheated. I've split it into several parts. Let's start. I'm curious, how many of you identify as humanists? You in the room, you can just raise your hands. And we'll also throw a poll up on Zoom so that the other folks can weigh in on this. So I'm seeing hands pop up, but then they disappear really quick, like people are kind of embarrassed to admit this thing.
Sorry, I can't launch the poll either. There's some glitch.
Okay, maybe maybe people
chat.
can either chat or use the raising hand thing in Zoom.
Reaction.
I'm going to guess. I think I saw maybe a third or so here, but I could miscount. And then somebody else is waving both their hands in the back to kind of double it up. and now fingers. So I'll wait for Colleen to guesstimate the rest of the crowd here.
6. Looks like about 6 people had their hands up.
Okay, and those are probably the ones that actually are able to figure it out.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. You know, we've learned that Zoom often pushes out updates on Sundays, and so we are always the guinea pigs. Some people had a difficulty connecting this morning, and that was unusual. So it seems like, and I'm just kind of making this up, that maybe somewhere between a third and a half or so of the folks are humanist. But, you know, also maybe some of you are not sure what a humanist is, and maybe don't identify with, you know, the little video that we saw, which was that the point about humanism is to live life, to make meaning in life by living it and fully and well. But another way to say it might be a religious movement that emphasized human capabilities, especially the human capacity to reason, that adopted the scientific method to search for truth, that promoted the right of all humans to develop to their full potential. These are the words of William Schultz, who was a former Unitarian Universalist Association president and also a writer on humanism. Now, note that that Schultz's definition included the word religious. Humanism that is practiced in gatherings like congregations rather than individually can be defined as religious humanism. And religious humanism has long been a central part of Unitarian Universalism. There is, of course, other groups like the Humanist Association, which I would say tend to be a little bit more individually focused. But as back in the day when we were Unitarians and Universalists, as the Unitarians became more religiously diverse in the 19th century, many began to move the locus of religion from God in heaven to God all around us, and then to focus just on us as humans. And this led to controversy and nearly to schism as in the post-Civil War era, as the more conservative East Coast Unitarians took on the more liberal Westerners. But things kind of gently settled down to just a low level of disagreement. In the 1930s, new energy flowed into the religious humanism movement, and several Unitarian ministers and philosophers issued a document called the Humanist Manifesto, delineating key points of humanism. Here are some of the statements in the manifesto, and I quote, "Man is a part of nature, and he has emerged as a part of a continuous process. Religious humanism considers the realization of human personality at the end, that is the goal of man's life, and the time has passed for theism, deism, modernism, and then the several varieties of new thought." I left the masculine language in as it was. We'll return to that. Now, humanism became ascendant in both Unitarian and Universalist strands of our movement to the point that today nearly half of UUs identify as humanist. The tension, the polarity between humanists and others in the movement has heated up in the last few years in some of our churches. About this, Amanda K. Papi, a Unitarian Universalist minister who has served both in ethical humanist societies as well as UU congregations, says, "I have never liked polarities and dualities. They lead to all kinds of misconceptions, and this one is no exception. The humanists are old and stuffy and intellectual," one stereotype goes. "They prefer debates to emotion, and they don't like to sing. Really, they're practically secularists, and who even knows why they go to church? The theists are leading us down a path towards evangelical Christianity," says another stereotype, "and all they care about is sneaking prayer into every service. If they have their way, soon there won't be any difference between us and the Presbyterians. Polarities breed stereotypes." This seemed to me like a no-win kind of argument. This is the kind of thing Unitarian Universalist minister Nancy McDonald Ladd calls a fake fight, draining our collective energy from real work as we just go on and on with each side assured of its own rightness. I wondered if we could move past this. I wondered if there might be a third way.
Our first reading for today is called Reason and Reverence, Religious Humanism for the 21st Century by William R. Murray. Scholars often differentiate between two kinds of religion, mythos and logos. Mythos refers to imaginative religion based on myths or stories with meanings. Myths provide an explanation of why things are the way they are and give a deeper meaning to life. The two creation stories in the Hebrew Bible are among the most famous myths in Western culture. I believe that myths were never meant to be taken literally, but were probably understood, even by a pre-scientific people, as metaphorical attempts to describe a reality that was too complex and mysterious to comprehend in any other way. It is only in a scientific age, with its emphasis on factual knowledge, that myths have come to be understood as facts. By taking myths literally, fundamentalist religion transforms mythos into logos. Logos is rational religion, which in our time usually means religion based on the scientific, empirical worldview. Rational religion developed primarily in Greek philosophy, much of which is essentially a rationalized version of Greek mythology. It also arose to some extent in the Hebrew prophets, who rebelled against rituals and ceremony and emphasized moral living and social justice. Humanistic religious naturalism is a contemporary form of logos religion.
Some years ago, I had a chance to speak with Reverend Roger Bruin, who was the editor of the magazine Religious Humanism. He steered me directly to the work of William Murray, who was president of Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago. Murray is the author of the book Reason and Reverence. Murray extends religious humanism into what he calls humanistic religious naturalism, which I know is a bit of a mouthful. Let me explore a few of these, the concerns he's had with religious humanism and how he addresses these with humanist religious naturalism. In distinguishing a new form of humanism from its precedents, Murray points to the study of religion where a distinction is made between mythos and logos, as we heard in the text. Logos is rational, factual religion, which Murray suggests is today based on a scientific, empirical worldview. Mythos is religion based on myths, which he tells us are stories with meanings. And he continues on and he says, myths were never meant to be taken literally, but were probably understood even by pre-scientific people as metaphorical attempts to describe reality, a reality that's too complex to comprehend any other way. But Murray goes on, it's only in a scientific age with its emphasis on factual knowledge that myths have become to be understood as facts. By taking myths literally, fundamentalist religion transforms mythos into logos. Now, Murray notes that modern science has its own mythos, stories with meaning. Those stories are not wrong, but they just may not tell the whole truth. For example, we understand the universe began some 14 billion years ago with the Big Bang. We visualize that creation event as best we can, perhaps as a flash after which the universe immediately began to cool and the various fundamental forces emerge and then matter and then leading to formation of stars and galaxies. But of course that Big Bang understanding is complicated by ideas of cosmic inflation and the possibility that universal creation is still ongoing in places. Such theoretical ideas fit some of our observations, but they haven't become part of our common story or mythos, for they're too new and difficult to grasp. What I find lacking in our more traditional religious humanism is the lack of emphasis on mythos, on the importance of stories with meaning. Stories can have multiple meanings, multiple interpretations. They are by nature unresolved. When we emphasize logos, we emphasize the truth, and we have a tendency to claim, it may be the same. To claim prematurely that we have found the one truth. We can, ourselves, in a word, become fundamentalists. So mythos, stories, are important. Our task is to update the stories to fit today's reality. Ursula Goodenough, a biologist, reminds us humans need stories, grand, compelling stories that help to orient us in our lives and in the cosmos. The epic of evolution is just such a story, beautifully suited to anchor our search for planetary consensus, telling us of our nature, our place, our context. Moreover, responses to this story, what we are calling religious naturalism, can yield deep and abiding spiritual experiences. And then, after that, we need other stories as well. Human-centered stories, a mythos that embodies our ideals and our passions. Much like science, humanism is good in the logos department. But just as many scientists are realizing that to be heard in the public square in a world full of anti-science, they need more than facts, more than logos. They need stories, mythos. If it is to survive, humanism does too.
Our second reading today is called Mystical Humanism. This reading by David Bumbaugh is part of a selection called Mystical Humanism, appearing in the book Humanist Voices in Unitarian Universalism. Anyone who understands the serious nature of the multiple crises confronting the earth and its children must acknowledge that though life and the planet may survive the catastrophic consequences of our thoughtlessness, it is no exaggeration to acknowledge that the world as we have known it is coming to an end. Humanism, lacking any supernatural referent, must find a new voice, a less optimistic vision. It must sing its song in a minor key to a generation that is facing an end time of our own devising. The humanism that will speak to our current condition must be more humble, more compassionate, and less certain and less self-assured than it has often been. It will be humbled by the reality of a world threatened not so much by superstition or irrationality, despite the noise that sometimes fills the airways, but by a cascade of unintended consequences flowing from an all too frequently arrogant assumption that the world is ours to shape by rational efforts into the blessed community. Without abandoning reason as we face the great disruption of our time, today's humanism must embrace the conviction that the world is not only stranger than we know, but also stranger than we can know. We live within limits and must respect those limits.
Okay, so Murray makes the point that humanism is strongly rooted in the modern age, and it is yet to take the leap into postmodernism. The worldview of modernity, the modern age, suggests that we can understand everything through scientific rationalism, and that we can apply logic and reason to solve any problem. Postmodernity suggests that there are things we cannot know, that the knowledge we have is incomplete and provisional. And because we have incomplete knowledge, the knowledge we do have is filtered through the lenses of our culture and ethnicity and other identity groupings. Humanism is modern, using logic, but not yet postmodern enough to realize logic isn't the whole answer. Let me give you an example. All 34 people who signed the Humanist Manifesto that we talked about earlier were male. I bet they didn't even notice the use of male gendered language in that document. As far as I know, all of them were white. A third of them were university professors, and half were Unitarians. Postmodern critique would suggest that these identities would lead to unconscious bias, if not the language itself, then in what is included and what is left out. So if humanism is to be fit for a postmodern age, it needs to be willing to listen to those voices, to more voices. It needs to be more tolerant of the needs of the uncertainty, of provisional views, of the possibility that our very rational efforts, even our careful use of the scientific method, may not save us from unconscious bias. In short, we need to be more humble about what we know and how we know it. Perhaps part of finding the heart of humanism is broadening the emotional experiences that we enjoy in life. Humanism's emotive longsuit has long been the recognition of a sense of awe and wonder at the universe and the natural world. I mean, who among us hasn't experienced some depth of feeling on looking up at a dark sky full of thousands of stars? As we learn more about the night sky, our wonder just increases. As we begin to identify the faint smudges as distant galaxies, for example. And can we extend that wonder to a place of humility, a sense of smallness and relative powerlessness before the universe? And how about praise? We don't have to respond by offering praise, for many of us doubt that there is anything or anyone out there that's actually listening to our praise. But if praise makes us feel whole, then let us praise this wondrous creation. When we walk in the woods or on a beach, do we feel like we truly belong to this world and that we are created from it and are part of it? Do we love it? This love invites us into a caring relationship with the natural world rather than dominance and separation. We're living through another summer of unprecedented climactic events, horrific floods in Europe and China, and wave after wave of torturous extreme heating and fires in the American West. As David Bombosh suggests, while life and the planet may survive these catastrophes and the underlying human-caused climate change driving them, the world as we know it is coming to an end. Bombosh goes on to say, the humanism that will speak to our current condition must be more humble, more compassionate, and less certain and self-assured than it has been. Perhaps if we respect our deep interconnectedness with the natural world we inhabit and learn to accept the limitations that this interconnectedness brings, then perhaps we can find ways to tread more lightly on this world for our sake as well as the sake of the planet.
Our final reading this morning is a Ute Blessing. I note as an aside that Unitarianism has had a sorrowful history with the Utes, for the Unitarian Association acted as an agent of the U.S. government overseeing the Utes during the 1870s. This was part of a government policy to Christianize the Native Americans. The blessing goes, Earth, teach me stillness as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering as old stories suffer with as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me humility as blossoms are humble with beginning. Earth, teach me caring as a mother who secures her young. Earth, teach me courage as the tree which stands alone. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me regeneration as the seed which rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep in the rain.
Finally, what emotions does humanism encourage in our relationship with one another? How do we respond to injustice? For many of us, a righteous anger drives us to act, to protest injustice, or to fight for social change. In the coming years, even more may be asked of us. We need to respond to those who suffer injustice, not only with righteous anger, but with compassion, so that we open up and share their pain as we attempt to understand their situation. In the end, the presence or absence of God is not a critical question to humanistic religious naturalism. If there is a God, that God seems not to be the micromanaging kind, always messing with our lives and demanding constant ego stroking. And if there is no God, may we rejoice in our improbable good fortune to be living in a universe and on a planet like ours, so finely tuned to support sentient life. As in the Ute Blessing, Earth, teach me that we are blessed, and we do well to respond with care for each other and this planet. Earth, teach me that we live in a holy place, and our heaven is what we create here on earth. As in the Ute Blessing, Earth, teach me suffering. Earth, teach me resignation. Earth, teach me limitation. But also, Earth, teach me courage and caring and kindness. May a new humanism allow us to learn these things, and may a new humanism allow us to know our hearts. Blessed be.
This is the time in our service when we ask that you remember that we share our gifts here through pledging and donations. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on a slide during the announcements before the service every week. Share the basket, and while you are considering your gifts to the fellowship, remember that each month, LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization providing food aid in our Lakeside community. For the month of July, we've been supporting Operation Feed, which provides food assistance in San Juan Cosala. When you pay your pledge, please add something to share the basket. You can donate in the same way that you pay your pledge, but please indicate what part of your donation is for Share the Basket. Loose change in the offering basket will be split half for Share the Basket and half for the LCUUF General Fund. Your offerings are gratefully received. And Matt's doing a masterful job of running around with the baskets. And it is now time for us to extinguish our chalices. Let us extinguish our chalices with these words which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world.
Just as the earth teaches the Utes, may humanism teach us the gifts of the mind: awe, wonder, ability, discernment, but as well the gifts of the heart: compassion, humility, kindness, caring. May such a humanism make us the good humans we are meant to be. And now for our postlude.